I went from being this very competent person in this career, very competent and confident, and then all of a sudden 55 job applications, nobody wants me. What everybody's telling me, that I'm not competent, I can't do the job, I shouldn't be in this work. What's going on? I know I'm actually good at the job. So maybe it was something to do with what I'm doing or not doing when I'm writing my job applications.
Well, hello again, and how are you? Welcome to another episode of the Finding Equilibrium show. I'm delighted you're here, and I hope all is well in your world. And today I have a wonderful guest, Kirsten Brumby. So Kirsten, thank you so much for spending time with us. And Kirsten is a career coach and the author of an amazing new book called Now What, which I've had the privilege of dipping into. And career is such a big part of well-being and such an important part of living a life that we feel is on purpose. I was really keen to find some time in Kirsten's busy schedule. So thank you very much for joining us. How are you today, Kirsten?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lawrence. I'm really good.
That's wonderful. And where are you? So where are you speaking to us from?
I am just outside of Bathurst, New South Wales, which is actually a country town about 3 hours west of Sydney. So I actually live out in rural Australia. So that's where I'm coming to you from now. And this is my home office that I work from. And that's where I am.
Wonderful. So career coach. So tell us a little bit, for the people who don't know you, a little bit about who you are, what your journey, and how someone becomes a career coach.
No worries. All right. Well, it's a bit of a story, and it's a pretty long story, but I'll try and shorten it for you because it could get a bit boring. But look, lots of years ago, maybe 20 years ago, 16 or 17 years ago, I had kind of finished. It was a bit of a story about I'd kind of come to a point in my information technology career where I knew that I didn't want to do that anymore. And the company that I was with at the moment, I stopped working with that company, and I was 6 months pregnant at the time. 3 months pregnant at the time. And I thought, okay, well, I'll stop working with this company. So I will now it's easy. I'll just go and get a 3-month contract in time. Then I'll have some time off before the baby's born, and then off I go. And then I'll do that, which was a great plan. And unfortunately, didn't actually work out that way, because 55 job applications later, and no interviews and no jobs until I got my first job interview, and I was about 7.5 months pregnant, and I went, that's for a 6-month contract, of which I'm going to be able to do about 1 week. So that and I went, oh my gosh. So I just kind of gave up, and then spent a bit of time, had the baby. And then of course I had about 6 months off in that time with the new baby. And I had quite a bit of reflection time and to think about what just happened there. I went from being this, very competent person in this career, very competent and confident. So knew my abilities, could do everything. And then all of a sudden, 55 job applications, nobody wants me. Everybody's telling me, is this what everybody's telling me, that I'm not competent, I can't do the job, I shouldn't be in this work? What's going on? And so through that reflection time, I went, oh, actually, that's not what it's about. I know I'm actually good at the job. So maybe it was something to do with what I'm doing or not doing when I'm writing my job applications. And so that's kind of where it all started. And so I kind of went, oh, actually, yeah, obviously they can't tell who I am and what I can do on paper. That's what's going on. That's why they didn't bring me in for interviews. So that was kind of a bit eye-opening, and then I kind of had a bit of reflection time, as I said, and I need to do this differently, and came up with a bit of a different approach to it, and then got the first job that I applied for in a bit of a different way as soon as I was ready to go back to work. So, and after that, I kind of then started to just help people that I know, family, friends, that they wanted to move careers, or they wanted to transition into a new job, or they were being made redundant, that sort of thing. And I just kind of helped people that I knew, and then it kind of morphed from there. And then I became a coach. And then I started to do a lot of actual, paid career coaching, because, I kind of had this approach that worked, and just a bit of a different way to think about it, which worked. So so I kind of just fell into it from there, from my own experience of having gone through it, and then figured out, how can I do something differently?
So interesting, yeah. And that's often where new ventures come from, isn't it? Your own pain, your own experience. Yeah. So I'm
exactly.
curious, I'm really curious. You've done 55 applications, and that's pretty miserable. And you just touched on, some of those self-doubt points, but I'm sure that was really, a lot was going on at the time. But what was it that you suddenly shifted? Because you went from 55 rejections, so to speak, if I use that word, to one acceptance straight away. Was it like a dramatic change? Like what? Because there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who will relate to the problem and be where you were, 55 applications, whenever that was. So, but what did you change? What was it that really changed your destiny, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, well, first of all, I'm not sure about the timing of this, which one came first. I probably came about the same time, actually. I was brought back in. I was brought back in as a consultant to actually run some work, just part-time, a little project in the old company that I've been in. They kind of begged me to come back. And so then I had this realization. That was when I had the realization, hang on a sec, actually, it's not about whether or not I can do the job. It's not about whether or not I was the perfect person for that job. It must be something else. So actually, I am competent. They want me back. So I kind of got that little boost and went, okay, no, hang on. So my confidence is back in my abilities and my capabilities. So then it has to be something else. And then I think it was actually the first job application. I was just looking for because I had now my oldest child had just started school, and then I had my baby. So I was looking for kind of a lifestyle. I'd spent the last 10 or 15 years commuting to the city, doing the 2-hour commute each day, the long hours, all of that sort of stuff. And then so now I went, right, I need something local, maybe school hours, that sort of thing, maybe part-time, so not 5 days a week. So I started to look for different kinds of jobs than what I had been looking for. And when I found this first job ad, it was for a personal assistant for a small business. And I went, well, I'm not a secretary. I don't have any personal assistant skills. But when I read the ad, I went, I don't think that's what this person needs. They kind of need like a business manager, but he's looking for a secretary or a PA. And so it was that kind of, and again, it was a bit of a light bulb moment, because I went, oh, hang on a sec, I need to think about this in terms of, I need to use empathy, step into that person's shoes and go, what are they trying to hire here? What are they trying to find? And I don't think it's a PA. And so then I just wrote a completely off the wall kind of cover letter saying, right, I'd like to, apply for your job, but I'm not a PA. But actually, I don't think that's what you need. And I think you need this, and this is what I can do. And I ran my own business, and I can do this, and this is what. And then he called me as soon as he got the application and went, whoa, okay, I think we have to have a bit of a chat, because this is really interesting. Tell me more about your ideas. And then I had a chat, and then I got a 3-day-a-week job as, I don't even know, never had a name really, but doing, helping him with his business. So it was that moment that I actually started to think about, from his perspective, what does he actually need? What does he want? What do I think he's going to, to want in this job or this person? And then actually write my cover letter and change my resume to that educated guess that I'd taken. And then craft them around that, rather than, oh, look at me here, I can do this and this and this. Yeah, and I'm really good, and I'm a good IT person. I'm actually thinking about, what do they need? What do they want to see? What do they want? Obviously I've still got to have those skills and abilities. It's not about,
sure,
fibbing and, yeah.
Yeah, it's not about pretending to be something you're not, but it's just literally
Yes, that's right.
is a shift of perspectives. Instead of applying from your own perspective, you actually empathized with the person.
Yes.
Hunting for somebody, but he was actually looking for the wrong skill set, which would not have. So you effectively, by taking the stance you did, you got a job for yourself, but you also helped him not hire the wrong person, which would have cost him more.
Correct.
So it's a good example of win-win-win. Thank you for sharing that. So just want to move on now from applications, because I can see how that approach can really shift the effectiveness of applying for a job.
Yeah.
If I'm currently, the last 18 months or so that we've had has forced many of all of us, I would argue, to really stop and reflect and question: are we spending our time in the way we want to be spending? So for people who are in a job, so they're not applying for a job, but they're not enjoying the job, or they feel there's something else out there for them, but they're not exactly sure what that thing is. They're not clear on their skill set. They're not clear on where they should. So they feel a sense of being stuck. They feel time is passing. I'm doing a job that doesn't energize me. I know other people have jobs that do energize them. Just looking at some of the stats, I see that, we see something like 84%. I think Gallup did a study that shows that 84% of people are not engaged in their work or their jobs. A big number, like from a well-being point of view. I always argue
absolutely.
work should be an enhancer of well-being rather than a detractor.
I know, a detractor. I know.
But for that person who is in that situation, and it probably aligns with the title of your book, Now What? They really don't know, and they're getting anxiety because they feel they should. They're not in a position to just, resign and take time off to explore the world or explore themselves. What guidance would you provide to that type of person whose well-being is struggling from because of a lack of career well-being?
Look, and that's a really good question, because it is absolutely common. And your description of somebody feeling stuck, that's the most common thing that people come to me. Not even a clarity around, I really hate my job, or I hate where I'm working, I've got to get out, or I need more money, or whatever. There's very rarely there's clarity. There's just a vague, or sometimes not such a vague, but certainly a certain sense of stuckness, and certainly confusion about what's going on, and just not really knowing and not having that clarity. So work in that space all the time. So, and I work, my approach to this is a little bit different. And it's certainly, I talk about that in the book, this approach. So my approach is actually quite standard, and it's standard because it actually really works, and it makes sense when you look at a holistic view of people, that it works. So what happens, so this is my approach. What happens is when we feel stuck, most times, I'm not saying everybody or every time, but when we feel really stuck, what we try to do is bring our logical, conscious brain to the problem, right? What is the problem here? Am I unhappy in the job? Do I want to change careers? Am I bored? What is it about what's going on? Where do I want to go? Well, I'd leave work, except I don't know where I want to go. So then where do I want to go? Or I'm not happy here, so I want to do something different. Well, what do I want to do different? Well, I don't know. So we bring this logical mind. The more that we bring our logical mind to that, if you don't get the answer straight away, virtually, then you're not going to get the answer. And that's what brings about the stuckness, because we just keep trying to ask ourselves the same questions. So instead of doing that, I advise people, or offer them and invite them and encourage them to actually turn that conscious mind off and stop it at trying to ask the question or answer those questions. Instead, what we then try to do is, through a couple of different exercises, we try to bring the unconscious mind which is a big untapped strength usually, to the problem. Now, the conscious mind and the unconscious mind work quite differently. So the conscious mind is just logic and reasoning. It just goes A plus B equals C. So, you know, I'm not happy in my work. I want to go somewhere else. A plus B so equals C. But I'm not getting the C. I'm not getting the answer. Instead, the unconscious mind works quite differently. And in unconscious mind working with that, and how I do that is just to get lots of information, not about the answer that you don't know yet, but just about right here, right now, who you are, how you are, what you like at work, what you don't like at work, what are the good things, what are the bad things, when are the times that feel like you're in flow, when are the times that you've been happy, so right here, where are you? So we stop thinking about where we want to go, trying to solve that problem, and we just think about where we are right now in all different ways. And through all different kind of exercises, there's lots of different exercises to do that. Because all we're trying to do with that is we're not trying to solve the problem, we're just trying to build information and build awareness about where we are right now. And so then when we leave that alone, then when we get that information in and then we leave that alone for a little while, let it settle, let it percolate, what the unconscious mind does almost invariably, and the amount of times that I've seen it work, and it's still quite magic because it's really cool, is that it kind of works like, you know, those childhood games, the join the dots, where you've got to join the dots and you go, it just looks like a pile of dots, but actually when you join them, then you get a beautiful picture. So this is how the unconscious mind works. It gets all these dots of information, and then all of a sudden one day while you're in the shower, or you wake up in the middle of the night, or you're watching a bit of telly, a cartoon on the telly, or you're taking the rubbish out, all of a sudden it goes bang, 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 and it joins those dots in a way that you would never have done, and that you would never have done. Your conscious mind could never have come to that conclusion, because it just works in a different way. So sorry, that was a bit of a long answer, but that's kind of the approach. We bring the unconscious mind to bear on the problem, but in a completely different way than we do the logical conscious mind.
I love that. That makes so much sense to me. So, and then the aha moment comes. And I suppose what you're really saying is that you've got to have faith, because what often happens is if we don't know, like you're using your analogy, A plus B equals C, if we don't know what C is, we get very stressed that we don't know.
Yeah,
it ruins the moment because we're trying consciously to solve it. But and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like what you're saying is that you've got to let go of that, have faith that see the answer will come, but there is a process to unlock the unconscious mind. And so that's you actually teach people, or you support people to actually go on that journey.
That's right. And there's a couple of, because I know how difficult that is, and because I know how difficult a lot of people are quite wedded to that whole logical process, and then you get a whole lot of other stuff that comes up that I should know the answer to this. If I just knew what the answer to this, I could make it happen. It's not an issue. I'd go and do the study, or I'd go and change jobs, but I don't know what to do, but I should. So you get all this sort of stuff that gets kind of rolled up in there and mixed up in there, and makes it really difficult. And so some of the exercises, so there's one in particular, and I do it first every time. It's called the drop dead list exercise, which is a pretty cool name for like just a exercise activity, but it's basically just looks at all of that stuff that I was talking about, where you are right now with this. What do you like? What do you not like? What are just all the realistic and practical stuff, like, you know, how much money do you want? How much money do you need? Where do you want to work geographically? What kind of, do you like working in a team, or do you like working by yourself? So that those exercises put structure around, give you a bit of a structure and a way of looking at, and a way of feeding your unconscious mind with all this different information from all different angles. And part of the coaching is the support. And I know when I work with, if I work with a person that I don't know, that I haven't got personal, that I already haven't worked with before, for example, then it's kind of, the conversation is a bit different, because if people know me, then they already have that level of trust. But if you don't, obviously you don't know that, and I tell you, right, we're going to use an unconscious mind and it's all going to be okay, and you just have to. So, I'll often say to them, right, you just have to trust me, and you just have to trust the process. If you trust me and trust the process, and particularly it's trust the process, it's not just me, because it's actually in the book, and I've had people use the process just through me, through the process, and not actually have the coaching from me, and it still kind of works. So just trust that process. But you do have to actually trust that process, because you actually have to, in a lot of cases, you have to take quite a proactive stance against your own logical mind to say, no, I hear you, and I know you want me to think about this question. I'm not going to think about that question anymore. I'm just going to, okay, I hear that you've asked the question. I hear that you're thinking about it. I'm going to stop you right there. And sometimes that happens, when you're doing the unconscious exercises. One of them is a particular, for example, to look at what your values are, your personal values, and how they kind of manifest at work, and what are your values at work. And so it kind of looks at it through that lens. And quite often that can give you insights about, oh my gosh, well, no wonder, I've got a big value about helping people, and so no wonder I'm not happy working at a tobacco company, for example, because that's not a good fit. So, and then I'll often tell people, when you have those thoughts, that's great, and that's an insight. And you can see my dog has just come to have a look at through the door, and somebody is driving down the driveway or driving down the road. He's settled down now, back on his bed. It's actually nearly walk time here for Jeb, the dog, so that's probably why he's a bit antsy.
It's amazing he didn't jump up at that.
Well, I know, and he's done that before. Don't you worry about that in meetings. I'll get this. He's a puppy all the way through COVID, so it was quite interesting. So they need to turn that. They need to turn that conscious mind off, and you need to have the trust in the process to actually do that, because sometimes your conscious mind can be very loud, especially if it's been yelling at you for so long that you're now stuck.
I love it. So another question that comes to mind is, this process feels like it's applicable to anybody at any stage in their career. So I think back to like my own personal career, for example, in the beginning of my career when I was at school and university, like I went through all of my university without clarity on what I wanted to do with it. And that was a source of stress, because I was like, at the time, the papers were like full of stories of Oxbridge, graduates who were working in McDonald's. And so it was because I wasn't one of those people who was studying medicine, or one of these topics where there was a defined career path. Is your approach applicable to people at that point, as well as the people who have had 10 years 20 years experience and are feeling that they need a change? Could this revolutionize the way school career programs work? Because it may have changed, and I'm talking without current knowledge, but I'm not sure if it's really revolutionized as much as it perhaps could do. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely applicable, and I've certainly coached people across all of from every kind of career issue, from I've been made redundant and now I don't know what I'm going to do, through to people that I have to get out of this job right now because I hate it, or because I don't have enough money, or whatever, straight through to people for whatever reason. So either they're not happy in their job, or they have to change geographical areas, they're moving or something like that, right through from age groups, all of it, everything. And it works because that's how our unconscious mind works. All it needs is for you to trust the process, and when you've got a bit of a structure behind there, I find that it actually works quite well. And also when you're having the coaching, then it works as well. In fact, interestingly, the case study that's just popped into my mind is the person that I got that first job with, after the 55 run of dry job applications, he was looking to grow his business when I started working with him. And through using, and obviously the tools and the approach was nowhere near as refined now after I've streamlined everything and created activities and all of that sort of stuff. But the same principles I used with him. And we went and it took a couple of years, it was 2 years working with him, but using the same principles of looking at where you are right now rather than what do you want to do. And so when I first came to work with him, his thing was, I need to grow this business. And the end answer for him, after concentrating on his, bringing this stuff into his unconscious mind, was that he part retired. So it was like a complete and utter turnaround, because by focusing on what was right here, right now, it turns out that the answer wasn't you want to grow your business. The answer was you want to actually spend more time doing fun things with your family and stuff like that. So he's kind of thinking that the answer was to grow his business for whatever reason. That's what I need to do. But when you focus on right here, right now, what's going on for you, then you come up with a completely different answer. And that's absolutely across the board. The stuff that comes up is crazy, and it's usually completely something that they have never thought about, wouldn't even countenance before they started doing it. And that's another really thing with the process, and the preparation around the process is about that. You're going to think some really crazy stuff, and I'm going to tell you that most likely it's going to be something that you haven't even had a chance to reflect about. It'll be kind of, for you, just totally crazy.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Because
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And you realize that a lot of times we're following other people's plans, because in that example, it feels like we have to grow the business. A lot of people who are running businesses, and they're in positions of stress now, and, financial stress. And I'd love your advice, I guess, for those people who are feeling very stressed, out of their equilibrium, desperate, dare I say that word, because it feels that their plan was working, but suddenly, through no fault of their own, those plans have been pulled apart. I'll include myself in that, because running big events it's not a great COVID business. So we were planning an in-person conference in September, so in Sydney, which is clearly not.
Sorry, now Jeb's barking. Hold on. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's good. Yeah, we love dogs. So people like that, people whose plan has suddenly been changed. I mean, you touched it before about being made redundant, but I'm just very sensitive to the current climate, that there are lots of people who are really struggling to even accept the situation. I mean, what advice would you give to those people who are feeling desperate?
Wow, actually, it's interesting, and it's probably, and I'm working with some people right now, actually, that are going through, for whatever reason, through that sort of difficulty, and through in different guises. One's struggling with, he's a manager and a leader in a medium-sized organisation, and struggling with having to cut the hours for his staff and that sort of thing. And it's interesting because of where we're coming from with equilibrium. For me, it's about taking stock in those times, and making sure that things are in balance. So and that's across everything. So plans are going to get crazy, but how do you then readapt and bring things back into balance? So, and actually and there's so many kind of examples of that. So, for example, there's someone that's hasn't had a break since before COVID last year, kind of had that I'm sure that many people have had the same story, that, you know, here in Australia with our lockdown, then no lockdown, then lockdown, then no lockdown, they came out of the first lockdown and then they booked some holidays, and then of course they were canned and they couldn't do those, so they planned something else and then they were canned. So they now find themselves at the end of nearly 18 months without a good break, and so they're at big risk of burnout. So for them, it's about, okay, how do you bring that balance? How do you get that balance now? If everything keeps getting canned but you know that you need a break, then how do you? So this is about balance. You have to figure out and work with them, and each situation is different. And so the same with the manager that's struggling. He's had to bring all of his workforce down on less than half hours, have to go through the stress of asking them they'll have to go to the government to get some of the subsidies and all of that sort of stuff. So they'll have to fill in applications. So how do you now bring that balance back in? He's a manager and a leader that's very in touch with his people, very connected with his people. So, and he's now feeling disconnected and disengaged with the organisation and with his people. So how does he bring that balance back when you're in unprecedented circumstances, things that are not only throw a spanner in the works, but then keep throwing those spanners in the works. And for me, it's always about balance. What is out of balance here? So for the manager, it's about the personal touch with people that he didn't need to have when he was in the office, but now that he's out, so he needs to, if he feels like he needs to call everybody every day and just touch base or text them or message them on their, they've got a group messaging service, then he needs to do that, but he has to bring that back in balance. So what bit is out of balance, and then bring that back in. So for the person that's at risk of burnout, the balance is not having a break. So how do you have a break in this circumstance? How do you set that up? And the answer is different for everybody, but it's always around how do you restore that balance when this is not a normal circumstance, and have the flexibility to do that, and have the ability to come up with a solution and try and execute it.
No, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's very interesting, isn't it, how balance is applicable to just about everything. I think as an entrepreneur now, since I've been on this entrepreneurial journey for a while, that's one of the key skills it teaches you is to adapt and flex, and because you have to, nothing's in your control apart from what you can control. And that's what I always say is control what you can control, and when the situation changes, then you have to just avoid those. My own situation, I'd like to go back to the UK, I can't, so I could focus on that obstacle and get frustrated and angry and all those things, or I could just focus on the elements that I can control and remain in balance. So it's that's right. Advice. We're almost out of time. I know, for you, you're one of the big things that you've done is written a book, created an amazing course. And so just for people who are listening to this and are keen to need some help. That's one of my big passions or beliefs, is that everybody would benefit from having a coach. That would be when I started training as a coach a little while ago now, that was a big thing, because you realize if you've got a coach that can really guide you and support you, then it helps you get out of your own head, or it helps you talk to the wrong people, and it actually helps you get to where you want to go, even if you don't know where you want to go. Your point about the unconscious mind, but people can work with you one-to-one, I'm assuming virtually, given everything's virtual these days. But the book sounds wonderful. Where can people find out about the book and get a copy of the book?
So probably the easiest way is to just go to my website, which is www.kirstenbrumby.com. And then the links to everything is on there. But the books are available via on Amazon and any other online bookstore, really. So that you can get both of those, and it's an ebook version, and as well as PDF or paperback. So all of that. The courses will be available. Pardon?
Sorry, the book's called Now What?
Now What? A step-by-step approach to land your new job or career. So, and the book, it's kind of so you can work with me as a coach, and obviously, but that's sometimes that's actually out of the financial reach of people. So the book, I call it DIY coaching. So you actually really can coach yourself through with the book. And now the courses, there's 3 courses, one that covers clarity and getting clarity about what we've been talking about today. And then there's 2 really practical ones about writing job applications, and then interview skills. So pardon me, whichever one fits. So they'll be available very shortly, and they're kind of the same. So both the book and the courses, which depending on which way that you like to learn, will take you through step by step the approach and the activities and all of that sort of stuff. So the book provides a really, I think it's $7 something for the electronic version. So really cheap way of actually, and you can actually do those things, but so you can have that coach in your back pocket if you like, but coaching is essential. I have a coach. I get coaching even though I'm a coach. So it's
I think you have
the support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you shared with me once that you get outstanding results. I may have remembered this correctly, but like I don't think anybody's worked with you who hasn't actually got their job. Did you say that? Or am I misremembering that?
No, you've remembered it right. And I'm going to get a bit embarrassed, but it's absolutely true. Now, look, that can take some time. I think the longest that I've worked with someone is 8 months or 9 months in order to get clarity and then get the job that they wanted, because sometimes it's it might be a difficult job to get into, or a difficult industry or something like that, and you're not particularly well suited. But yeah, this stuff works. It's actually the reason I wrote the book, because I just went, this stuff actually works. It actually doesn't just work because I'm a good coach or because of me. It actually, the process and the structure, the activities that I've developed over the years actually brings results, and I'm applying these. So, so I can help more people by having a book and having it available on courses, than just me trying to fit in so many coaching sessions. Yeah.
It's amazing. Let me just finish by acknowledging you, Kirsten, for like the amazing work you do, and having a proper toolkit around career coaching, which is such an important part of our life, within your broader Equilibrium toolkit, is going to really help us. So everybody should at least read the book, would be my recommendation, because we just don't invest in ourselves in the right way. And your whole methodology from the days when you were applying for 55 different jobs without success, fortunately, I think something good comes out of it, because when you were doing that and feeling I'm guessing not so great, you didn't realize that one day you'd be an author and have courses and be training and teaching so many people to help them find what they want to do. So thank you, Kirsten, and enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you everybody for your time. See you next time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for listening.